In fact, for a large part of the world, it could be argued that some humans, by no fault of their own, currently live in a state of cultural ignorance. I wanted to say all humans, but they wouldn't let me say that. We may be able to mutter a few words in Spanish, point to Greece on a map, or recognize the sound of a British accent, but until we've got our passport and paid our governments for it, and let them know that we want to go see the world, and convinced another country to let us in, we're confined to one. It's land, it's culture, and it's people. That's where we're going with this book. Hello, my name is Damon and I am an author, apparently. This is the Q&A video of all the things you guys wanted to know from Instagram. Y'all got questions about the book? All right, look, thousands of you have already bought this book. That's crazy in itself. I have a book tour as well that's happening. By the time you're watching this, I'm in New York already. That was on my Instagram or my newsletter. So if you're like, wait, there was a book tour announcement? Yeah. Y'all gotta be signed up in more than one place these days. How do you think I feel? I gotta be on TikTok, I gotta be on Shorts, I gotta be on YouTube. Like, I don't know how to do this shit either. I'm guessing the whole way as well. But no, can you get the book? Because we're gonna do a book club. And it'll probably be on some app like Goodreads or Fable or Storytime. Isn't that one? But wait, one more thing. It would really help if you could like put the book on a shelf on Goodreads or review the book on Amazon. Or if you're in a bookshop, if you could just ask like, hey, are you gonna stock this book? Because bookstores don't know which books to buy from publishers because they don't know who wants what. Because most people just walk into a bookstore and then walk out. So they don't know what they're looking for. So we're gonna get into all these things. This is a book that requires global participation. I know my audience is mainly an English speaking audience because I'm making most of my videos in English, but it would really help the book club if we had a global audience. Because like, I'll never forget the time that I came here and I was like, oh wait, you guys don't recite the Pledge of Allegiance for like 12 years of your life as a child? And everyone was like, you do that? Like, wait, you're telling me you got children whose brains are developing and they are standing up because they have to, or else they'll get in trouble, staring into the flags like cotton thread count and reciting, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I haven't said it in so long, I might have fucked it up right there. What? How many times am I gonna film and not turn the camera on? I was laughing because I was saying, I'm reading the first question. Was there anything you wrote but then thought it was too personal to be in the book? No, I wrote everything I wanted and they cut it. Each chapter starts with like a story or like an introduction, and then je te donne la parole. Then it's up to you to like fill in your answers to a lot of these questions that I'm asking to figure out how you're representative of your culture already, without you even realizing it. So there were lots of stories, and a lot of these stories, like, I tell a lot, and a lot of it's because I don't understand why we have all these formalities and roles that we play in society when if I meet you on the street, I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. So why would I act any different right now in front of the camera online? I have no issue with that. I have no filter with, it's just like, I don't understand that actually. To do anything else would be, to me, inauthentic. It's like, I get it. The tensions between the United States and Russia have always been tense. I'm somebody who likes to make light of everything. Everything. I have very dark humor. I'm like, we don't need to take things so seriously because all of this is, to me, made up. I'm talking like nationalities or procedures in society that we have to follow. Rules. All rules have been made up to me. And actually all morals, I think, have been made up as well. Whatever. There was a... This joke was kind of out there, but I'm just gonna tell you guys. Okay, we know that the tensions between Russia and like any other country, it's just tense. It's tense, especially the United States and Russia. I meet this cute Russian guy in London and I thought we were flirting, and then like an hour before our like date, he's like, hey, can my girlfriend come? And then his girlfriend was also Russian, so we're three of us sitting there like in London. I'm the American, two Russian people. We're getting along so fine. Anyways, I write this story, and then at the end of the chapter, which got cut, I said, I surrendered to his girlfriend so this didn't become a cold, cold war for his heart. The United States should be cutting me a check for this like global diplomacy. So that's like what I was saying, but they're like, we cannot put that in this book, Damon. See, that's where I'm like, I fuck with comedians because comedians just will say whatever. Again, the fact of the matter is we can jabber, jibber, jabber all day long, But that's not the point. The point is that literally I am an American and there are 2 Russian people at this table and we're having an amazing time together despite what the news and what the governments are saying. So my joke, I didn't see why it was so bad. In British English, you could say, I'm taking the piss. I don't know what we say in English, American English. Like, I'm making fun of it. I'm teasing. Because the reality is I'm getting along just fine, if not better, with them. So whatever, next question. Longest time of not writing it. So what would happen is I would submit my draft. There were probably like at least 10 drafts. Back and forth. There was one time I remember I wrote it in Mexico City and I'm like, wow, I'm done. I'm so happy in this movie shop. I can go home. But it wasn't done. It was not done because they took 3 months to go through it all. And the process is you write your drafts, you're assigned an editor, you work with the editor back and forth, and it's all through email, which pissed me off, to be honest. I'm somebody who wants to sit there with you because that's just more efficient. I'd rather just get the thing done. So if I could go to London, I was like, I will pay for my ticket to London, pay for the hotel, and if I could just come in for like 3 days and work with you, but they're like, that's not how this works.
And I think some of it was just the fact that it was during COVID, and not that people were worried about getting COVID, more that they just didn't want to go in the office. So if I came to London, it meant like, we got to go in the office. I'm like, that's not how we got to do this. I can come to your house and we could drink wine and make this fun. It doesn't have to be so dry. Yeah, the whole dragging things out by waiting on people's emails and then people are out for vacation. Like, I just think sometimes things are made a little bit too difficult.
And that was the case with the cover. And I was like, can I please just like sit next to you so we don't have to do all this back and forth? Like, that would help me and you. That's not how things are done. You know I don't mess with rules. After you're done with your drafts, then they send it to the typesetter. The typesetter is designing the pages to make sure that like your paragraph ends exactly on that page and doesn't like spill over to the next one, in which case they have to print a whole nother page with like 1 sentence on it. And pages cost money, and if they're gonna publish thousands of books, then that's a lot of money. So that's what the typesetter is doing. They're going through and like making sure the fonts are right, all that. Then they pass it on to the proofreader. You got someone else like the copy editor. It goes through like 5 different people who, again, I didn't have contact with. They just take it. Which chapter is the most juicy fun? Let me just read a little bit from, race, period. For the race chapter, again, I'm not even saying anything. I'm literally not even saying anything. But for a lot of these, they had to get like sorry, I don't know any of these words anymore. This is like a year ago. They had to like have somebody else read through it to make sure that it wasn't pushing the envelope too far. But again, I'm sorry, maybe we're on different pages. That's what I wanted to do. In the pursuit of becoming a global citizen, it's inevitable that at one point or another, you will feel what it's like to be around people who look nothing like you, to be in the minority. Although maybe this is already a daily experience in your country. For instance, you're enjoying your day in Marrakesh and find yourself confused when a random tourist asks to take a photo with you because they've never seen anybody like you. Like perhaps at a wedding or in a friendship group where everyone is Hispanic, you feel the need to tell everyone that like the groom, he's white. That would totally happen. Or how people might say someone is African American when they're not actually American at all. They have no part of being, it's just people are getting that twisted, and it's because they haven't, I guess, really thought of the term. Like, what does African American mean? And also, why am I not European American, but we do differentiate between the two? I mean, we all can know why, it's history, but it's just like either I'm a European American and that person is African American, if they're African American, or I'm white and they're black. Or perhaps the server in Chiang Mai is recommending a dish on how spicy a level they think you can handle. All of these things point out that we notice race. And these aren't like direct like acts of discrimination, as like current society would make us believe that any time we notice race, it has to be about discrimination. I would just say, you know what, there's a lot in this chapter, and I think it's super interesting. Like one of the questions is, how much of your life has been spent in the majority or minority race of wherever you are? Or make a list of everyone you've ever dated or had sex with. Notice any patterns? Again, not saying any of this stuff is wrong. It just means that all of these things have shaped the way you see the world, because that's your truth, that's your reality. But honestly, I think Morals and Taboos is my favorite chapter, just because it's the one where I feel like I can provide the most value. Because I feel like it's a topic where I myself have had a complete 180. I used to be such a goody two-shoes, and now I'm like, Who do you think you are telling me what to do? Or the government? That's funny. I pay you taxes that I maybe don't even want to pay, but that like are extorted from me. For you to tell me what I could do, for you to be on the street arresting me if I want to smoke weed. Come on. Like, here you go, take my money. And wait, what can I do again? Forget it. So silly. The first time I learned about what the word contempt in court meant, I literally laughed. I would be somebody who commits that. I'm just very much a believer in that there are no systems that are like set in stone and we as people are like just need to operate through them because that's the way the world works. No, somebody created the system, somebody who had a brain, much like myself. It is now my job and your job to use that brain, to question, what are these systems in place in our countries and do I still agree with them? It's not just because they're here that they need to stay here. So for something like contempt in court, maybe I just don't understand it. It's like if you have to go to court and you are like almost mocking the trial. You're like mocking the procedure. Let me just tell this one thing that happened to me when I was 20, and I think that's why I have such a rebellious nature now. Again, back in the day, I was very much follow the rules. I was A+ honor student, all of it. I was working at a hostel and there was a Swiss guy and he asked if I could show him the city. Now I got off at work at 11. So I got off work and I'm like, let's go look at the Hudson River at night. So we have to cut through a park. When we were in the park, where the cops came. And they're like, you guys smoking weed? And I'm like, no, I don't even like weed. They're like, okay, what are you doing in a park after dark? I was terrified in the moment. Now I would be like, it's none of your business, one. Like, I, a human, can't be in nature? That's silly, especially in a city like New York that's nothing but concrete. How dare you try to patrol me where I can be in like nature. That's the most natural thing I could ever do, want to be in nature. How are there hours for this park? I'm not doing anything wrong. If I were doing something wrong, that's a different story. Anyways, that's what I would say now, and that's probably why I would go to court. Anyways, I still had to go to court because he gave me a court summons for being in a park after dark. I didn't even know that was a thing. Turns out, that isn't a thing around the world. You go to Norway and a lot of the Scandinavian countries, you have a right to be anywhere at any time. You could be in the forest whenever you want. That's your choice. I ended up going to court. I was terrified I was just literally living in fear of like the government and court and all of that. They let me off saying that as long as I didn't get in trouble for 6 months, it wouldn't be on my record. Now I look back at that, like that is complete nonsense. I was in a park, but I was so fearful of the government that I pay indirectly via my taxes. But we don't learn that part because we don't learn about that in public education, which is funded by taxes. Just who's gonna bail me out is the question. Please go buy this book so I have money to get me out of jail. So contempt of court is like, you're not taking the system seriously. You don't have faith in the system. And it's like, should I? Did you use my tax dollars to teach me about finance and taxes? No. How can you think that I'm gonna have trust in you? You're silly. That's silly. Like, this is how I would talk back to the, okay, next question. I'm gonna get fired. Or you know what? Let me just talk about it now. This Instagram company who sells not CBD gummies, but they sell psilocybin gummies. So a mushroom. They sent me like a package of these mushrooms. Now, this is not legal. And that's the point. They're trying to make it legal by changing people's minds and having activists and people who stand up for this kind of stuff to then change the laws. It's not that the laws are there and they're just set in stone. Anyways, my mom didn't send me these gummies. She wouldn't send me the gummies because she's like, that's illegal and I don't want to get in trouble. I said, one, that's fine. Like, I don't care that much. But if I ever got in trouble for that, I would almost be proud that I helped push the movement forward by acting in a way that I see fit for the rest of the future. That should be legal. It's not, but it should. And I think it's silly that, again, I'm paying taxes for you to like patrol me. Just like, beep, just cut the whole thing.
Okay, no, but for real, like right now I just walked to get a coffee and then there were a group of police officers on the corner and in my mind I'm like, should I jaywalk? And then I'm like, this whole thing that's in my mind about not even wanting to jaywalk is already such an American mindset. People, when you leave the States, don't even know what jaywalking is. They're like, that's a thing you can get caught for. That's why it's like, these don't need to be laws, you guys. So I jaywalked in front of the police. I was trying to stand up. Stand the fuck up, New York. I was trying to stand up for what I believe in, jaywalking. So I don't know. These things are really interesting to me, how The world, literally where we grow up, shapes how we view the world. And we will never know other ways to live unless we explore other ways of thinking, or we travel to other places and realize that's not the case. More on that later.
Hardest, most surprising thing about the whole process of writing a book, I would say the hardest part was trying to fit my thoughts into their word limit. I was under the impression like, this is my book. If it needs to be 4,000 pages, it's gonna be 4,000 pages. And they're like, no, in the contract that you sign, you basically agree to a certain number of pages. Actually, I remember in the contract it was 198. Let's see. Oh, exactly. They got the good deal. 170. Inspiration for the title. So the original title, I wanted the title to be Me, Myself, and My Baggage. Like me, myself, and I, but me, myself, and my baggage. Your baggage being everything you carry around today mentally. And a lot of that is your culture. The metaphor was this. You are a piece of overweight baggage. We all are, not just you. And you don't even know what's in your baggage to make it be overweight like that. We are all thrift store baggage with many pouches. Have you looked inside your own pouch? It's only until you go through that baggage, work through the book, that you'll realize what belongs where, and why you think the ways you do, why you react the ways you do, why you're interested in the things you're interested in. This was probably one of the most frustrating parts for me, you guys. So I didn't design this, and you know that I love my design. That was hard for me. And as I mentioned, I'm somebody who would rather, I'll take the Eurostar to London, can I sit with you? That way you don't have to send font options back and forth, and I could be like, yes, no, ugly, good, two sans serif. So I was going back and forth. And there were lots of different options, which we can show here. I even went in and made 30 to be like, this is more the direction. I don't really know how to use Photoshop, really, but this is like what I was looking for. Oh, can we get Visa stamps? Can we get luggage tags? Like, I wanted all that stuff. See, and I was going to all these book meetings from a social media and like this like philosophical lens that I have now, because I'm really into philosophy. I'm like, look, books are not just books that you read one time and you're done. A book is something that you're gonna take with you on vacation. That's gonna be in the background of all your photos. You're gonna want to take photos with the book in different locations, like, because people are gonna be around the world in front of the Eiffel Tower like this. They're gonna be in Miami Beach like this. It needs to fit all those. We settled on this, which is a maze. And because my book is one that you have to go through and try to almost get the way out of your own identity maze, your mental maze, we thought it made sense. And then also I was like, when you look at this, it almost feels like you're being hypnotized, because it is like a spiral like that. And I was like, I kind of like that, because up until now, we've all kind of been hypnotized or brainwashed. These are like really strong words. I don't mean it like that, because our cultures aren't just completely out to brainwash us. There are really beautiful parts of each culture. Good or bad, we have all been brainwashed, shaped by our cultures. So wouldn't it be cool to do the same thing, almost like ironically, but like getting people to realize that this isn't a book about becoming a global citizen. It's a book about remembering that you already are. Like, let me remind you guys, you and me, we are just humans. Every other label was made up. You don't have to follow anybody's rules. Ever. So I wanted to make this to be like, no, reminder. You might have grown up in the United States. You might be representative of the United States in many ways. You might love the United States in many ways. Cool. But that's just where you grew up.
And by that, I mean, no matter where you grew up, your frame of reference, everything that you know is like working within the confines of the culture you grew up in. La 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 la, that's like a lot of like jargon. What I mean is, like, if you're an American, you grew up in a culture that's rather informal. You're used to just running up to someone and be like, hey, do you know where the metro stop is? And there's no weirdness about that. You could just do that. It's fine. You're used to having to hustle your ass off because you're the one that has to pay for your education. You're the one that has to pay for your healthcare. And then we wonder why American culture is so hustle focused. It's like because you have to, because you have to do it that way to survive here. We're operating within our political context. You're either Republican or you're Democrat because third parties never really win. So you're never really encouraged to look at any other options. You're like, you are either to the right or to the left. Like, I'm born in the United States. I adopt all of these things that I just mentioned as my way of looking at the world. But it would be unwise for us to only think like that's the only way we could have turned out. When had I been born in Australia, I would have looked at the world a little bit differently. I could have been born in so many other places and my outlook of the world would have completely differed. So for me to just abide by this American framework, to me is like, it's like premier degré. It's like the first, it's like if you walk into an ice cream shop and you have only had vanilla your entire life, so you're just like, I'll take vanilla. That's what I like. And it's like, have you tried Rocky Road though? Because a lot of people like Rocky Road and prefer it. It's not just because you've only been exposed to vanilla that you have to turn it off.
You are a global citizen, though. You belong to the whole planet. The whole planet should be yours, as long as you're respectful. See, now, before I moved to France, or before I even traveled, I was always thinking that the United States was just shit. We were bootleg luxury. So I was thinking that everywhere else in the world was had societies that were just better functioning. In some aspects, that is correct. But my mentality was wrong, and that the United States was shit and everywhere else was amazing. So I came to France being like, yeah, I want to be French. They're doing it all right. And after living here for 5 years, you've seen on this channel that like there are many aspects of this culture too that I just don't vibe with. Like when I go into the boulangerie and I forget to say bonjour and they come at me with this like sassy bonjour. I'm like, we didn't need to do all that. I didn't come in your store meaning any harm. Anyways, my point is, I don't have to be fully American or fully French. And I don't have to be half French or half American. I don't have to be any of it. And I can be all of it. I just feel like it's interesting that we've come to a place in society where it's like, I'm born in a country, I absorb that country's values. I have to literally ask a government to print me a passport so I can go anywhere else to even explore those countries to decide for myself if I want to live over there. And then even that, it's like to hope and pray that that country will even let me in. It feels very much like I'm still a child in this world system and it's up to other people who can tell me what to do. And I'm not saying just me, I'm saying like you, like every human. I just find it interesting that like I haven't found a book really about that.
No. And I'm a lucky one. I was born with an American passport. That shit is strong compared to a lot of other countries around the world. And see, I don't think people really understand this because they probably never, majority of people haven't applied for a visa. So they're not going to really understand, like, you have to prove that you're worthy enough to be able to go to another country. And I get it, like for safety purposes, to register people so they can pay taxes in the right country. That shit makes sense. But every time I pass through border control, and like when I go to England, I can pass through a lot quicker just because I have an American passport. I get to go through the automatic electric gates. You know, they have like the sign that says like all these countries can go over here. I didn't do anything differently though. And like, I try not to use words like passport privilege because I think the word privilege will turn a lot of people off like immediately. But like facts are facts. A lot of it has to do with like, you know, your human rights and how economically strong your country is. Does England think that I'm just going to like bust up in here and stay for the rest of my life? I think a lot of that has to go into this, you know, who they let into the country visa free. But again, it's like, I wasn't here for the previous generations for you to have that opinion on my country. So why do I have to suffer the repercussions? Turn it off. The
word you used too many times. The word for me, I have two. Ultimately and essentially. I was like, that's the only word in my vocab after writing this entire book. I actually really like that question because it is when you're writing that you realize, oh shit, I say that all the time. That's what I say in my language classes too. Look, you need to know the words that you say. The words that you say are gonna be different from the words that I say. So for me, I need to learn what ultimately and essentially are in Spanish, French, German. And that's the problem with language learning books, because we're all being taught to speak the same way, but that's not how we all individually speak. You gotta learn how you speak. I never thought that I was gonna be an author. Like that was never my career thing. Today I'm even like, I wouldn't even call myself an author or a writer. For me, this whole process was more about, I have ideas. It's nice to have somebody's like thought out analysis in one book that you can have in your backpack at all times and always like kind of dive into their brain when you want to. It was more from that angle. It wasn't that I saw this huge career goal that I needed to accomplish. Where exactly were you when you were writing it? So I wrote the book all over. It started in Pret-a-Manger near the Louvre on the back of a napkin.
I wrote it mostly in Mexico City Paris, London, and I think like some in New York last year. I was like traveling though, so I was in Guatemala. I would write a little bit. But if you meant that like where, like what logiciel, what software, I tried to do most of it in Notion. You know, I do everything in Notion, but they didn't work off Notion. See, they wanted me to download Microsoft Word, and I was like, no, I'm not downloading Microsoft Word. Like, we have Google Drive right here. I also didn't know like Google Drive gets super laggy once you hit like 100 pages. So I had to cut the document into like multiple parts. So it was mostly in Google Docs, and then I'd send it to them, and then they would do their Microsoft Word thing.
Because you're working with a publisher, it's not just your book. It's just like, I know as a consumer what it looks like. It's like Damon Dominique wrote this book, he designed it, he's getting 100% of the royalties. I wrote literally the whole thing, but they're the ones that are really choosing what makes the final cut. Like a lot of these questions, some are to me more worthwhile than others. Some to me are a little bit too general, some to me are a little bit too specific. It wasn't only my decision. And that's because you sign a contract, you sign a book deal. And the book deal says like, hey, we're the book publisher and we'll take care of printing it and making sure it gets in stores and handling all the sales. You write the thing, you promote the thing. And so your book deal contract is supposed to like reflect that. Of course, y'all just go on Google and look at the average royalties for an author. It ain't much. It ain't much. The difficult part of writing is not getting your ideas on paper. It's the refining part and trying to refine not only what you think is worth reading, but then again, what the publisher thinks is worth reading. And a lot of times those two things are different. I also think it depends who your editor is. So again, I got partnered with an editor, and luckily it's somebody that I've known now for a few years. And I think she truly understands like what I'm trying to say. So it was super helpful to work with her. But in the back of my mind, I think any author would have the same question. Is my editor representing the general public, or is that just my editor's opinion? Because if that's just my editor's opinion, then damn, like, am I just generalizing what I want to say just for her? Because in which case, like, no, like, run this through somebody else. That was a big takeaway for me. I thought like I would be able to say exactly what I wanted to say, and they'd be like, okay, let's publish your book. No, the two people who inspired this book the most, my ex. Because look, it's like if you're gonna be coupled up with somebody who's not even from your country, you are gonna be fighting in different ways. You're gonna be loving each other in different ways. You're gonna have different references, and you're gonna be like, hey, remember that time Oprah? And he'd be like, who is Oprah? It's like your relationship is already so much more interesting. In fact, look, on my notes down here, I actually wrote this thing, and he was talking about board games. I'm like, don't come for board games. Americans love board games. And he's like, no, but board games? Yo, he said board games are for people qui n'ont plus rien à se dire. Like, il n'y a plus rien d'intéressant entre eux. So they create like a moment that really says nothing about anybody, because it's just like, I'm moving pieces on a chessboard. Like, this says nothing about you or me. Like, I'd rather have a real conversation and connect. And anyways, my ex will come in here and be like, why do you have all these candles on? I'm like, wait, you don't like candles? He's like, no, they're too chimique et artificiel. You need to open your window and get the natural. And I'm like, no, but that's not what a candle is. Like, you put a candle on for fragrance. So it's these unexpected disagreements and differences that I find are so fascinating. And again, those things might not be the most popular opinion, but they're interesting opinions. And I don't have to believe them or agree with them, but I want to hear them. I say it because it put my mind in a place where I started kind of questioning everything that I ever liked or didn't like. The second person was Eckhart Tolle. He's the one that really taught me that we're all just going around playing different roles. We're all just going around with different masks and roles on. You go to the restaurant down here and the waiter, who's really just a person like you or me, has his waiter role on. It's just a fake role. You're literally just a person. I'm just a person. And that's why I have problems with like the court system and government, because we tend to put those people on pedestals and we're down here. Why do I have to call you Your Majesty? Or Your Honor, because you studied this. I'm just like, I'm really over it. These are different roles and different masks. But you woke up this morning just like I did. Like, you got dishes in your sink too. We're the same. Where can you buy it? I've asked the publisher this a million times, and they're gonna say you can buy it online. And I'm like, that's not what people want to hear. They want to know where they can walk into a bookstore and get it. Barnes & Noble bought a chunk, and then they distribute it out to their bookstores. That's why, like, the publisher doesn't really know. If you want my honest opinion, it's outdated. This whole thing's outdated. Because here's how it works. Publisher publishes the book. You have different bookstores like Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, whoever it is, or individual bookstores. They're placing orders. So Barnes & Noble, this big company, is purchasing hundreds or thousands of books. but like we don't really know which Barnes and Nobles they're gonna be in. So it might be in Florida, but it might not be in California. The publisher doesn't really have answers to give me, to give you. I'm just like this, are we satisfied with this? And if I'm being real, I think part of it also is like because I'm an influencer, they're expecting me to push the book a lot. But then my business brain kicks in and I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense because I'm pushing a book out where I'm only getting a small royalty. Like again, if I'm trying to do this financially smart, this doesn't make any sense. Am I the only one thinking this? Am I the only one thinking this? I got my knowledge from out in the world. I mean, thank God it's a book about the world, right? Like, would you prefer that I have a degree where I studied about the world in textbooks or that I used that money and reinvested it into actually going to do it? That was always the way I was thinking. When I was studying French and Spanish in college, I'm like, why am I spending all this money to learn this in a classroom when I could spend all this money studying in the country? Without the college, but like if I have it in me to like study it on my own and be autonomous and disciplined, I can go to the country, learn it better, and spend less money. I got my education in a different way. It's just not like the preferred status quo way. That don't work for me. This is like a cool thought that I had the other day. I'm like, I have probably walked more of this earth than many people. Like, I've probably walked more of this earth than most people alive. Ever. Ever. So it's like, if I'm gonna write a book, it needs to be about that. Not only me, you. We all have like seen more of this earth than anybody else who's ever existed. What will the book help us accomplish? What value? I like that. So let me read a little bit real quick. I have a chapter in here called Why This Book Right Now. If we were to zoom out from Earth, we would quickly realize that our national borders are invented constructs. And thus, so are the man-made divisions between us. Our home country's social codes, political climate, status in the world, even the jokes sometimes made about other countries in the latest film. Sorry, I just noticed something. I had to add in all these like sometimes, maybe, perhaps, and like those are words that I don't really like saying because I'm somebody who would rather follow somebody who has a definitive answer. I want to hear what you want to say. And I also know like you probably don't mean any harm by it. So if you make a pretty like strong statement, I don't know, it's like I can stand alone from your statement and judge it. It's not like just because I hear your statement, I'm gonna automatically absorb it. And so we have to be careful with what we say. Does that make sense to anybody? Like, I wish I were able to say exactly what I wanted without all these disclaimers, like sometimes and some people. I wish I could have just said like, here's what I think. But then everybody else could read the book and be like, okay, that's his opinion. That's his view. That's not the absolute truth. But it's not just because I'm saying this without any sometimes and some peoples that you automatically have to take on everything I say as truth. La la la. We often blindly take on this conditioning from the culture we grew up in and operate in a global world from it. 8 billion people around the world will do the same with another preferred cultural default. Understanding why we are the way we are and why others are the way they are is key in moving society forward in a peaceful, evolved way. Because whether we know it yet or not, before any other label, we are all global citizens. It'll only take one alien to bust up on Earth for all of us to be like, oh right, all of these like man-made divisions were just made up. We're all the same kind of person here. With different preferences. Like it's only when you start traveling and discovering what other people are doing around the world that you realize about yourself.
It's important to realize that all of your current preferences are probably just preferences like within a given set of preferences. Like if you grew up in Tunisia, you're probably eating tagine, vegetable type couscous tagine all the time. That's like what was provided for you. So until you travel somewhere else like Brazil and you realize, oh shit, I love acai, you're not gonna really know that because you're just operating within the confines of Tunisia. Or for example, I love how in Japan, when you pay for anything, they will take your credit card, but they take it with 2 hands and they bow down. Like, thank you for this exchange. Love that. That shit's cool. Or if you're walking through the metro in Paris, sometimes you'll notice that where they could have put an advertisement, they put a poem or they put a piece of artwork. Love that. If you go to Tunisia, you have the call to prayer 5 times a day. And so whether you are religious or not, you are being hit with that like siren basically that's going off, the call to prayer. Like whether you're praying to Allah or not, like you could use that time for something else. These aren't things that I would have ever noticed or realized had I just stayed in my country and just accepted that one version of myself that again was only given to me by birth. To me, it's like almost the lowest form of your identity. You just accept the one that you got. Like, come on. No, there's so much else out there.
If you're like me and you travel like me, you go on your travels for adventures. Like, you have traveling for vacation. That's one thing. That's not what this book's about. Traveling for vacation that's great. Then you have traveling to like travel and discover a culture. That's what this book's about. And people think it's that they're going to a country to discover like, I don't know, the Taj Mahal and the Egyptian pyramids. It's like, yeah, but in the process, what you're actually learning is more about yourself. The ways you don't fuck with that society. The ways you do fuck with that society and you don't want to fuck with your own society anymore. That's what you're learning, and that's the mindset I hope people get from the book. Where to start first? At the beginning or somewhere else? I like that. So no, I would say start at the beginning because there's a process to this book. Also, I'm just like y'all. I was like, if this were me, I would probably jump around. So what's the incentive for doing it from the beginning? Okay, the beginning is this. We'll begin and end this workbook in the same way with a set of questions used to establish where your cultural values, beliefs, and identities stand as of now. How do you think the rest of the world views your country? What do you think other people think of you? What do you think about their country? How many other countries' national anthems, flags, or government officials could you identify? I was just watching a Vice debate the other day, and it was about feminism and anti-feminism, and they were talking about like, should women be able to run countries? And not only could they not name Theresa May from England, but it was like as if that was a standout case. And it's like, y'all, have you seen New Zealand's prime minister? Finland? Have you ever been to the Netherlands? Like, every mayor is female. The mayor here is a woman. And Angela Merkel, like, she was in office in Germany forever. It's like, but I can't blame them for even thinking like that because there aren't books like this to teach people like, oh, right, I thought that the world worked this entire way because that's how my country works. Okay, how many pages are about your ex? By the way, he's coming over in a few hours, so y'all gotta wrap this up. So in the acknowledgments, I acknowledge a few people. And by the way, they wanted me to cut my acknowledgments. I was like, I'm literally thanking you guys. Like, thanking the publisher, and they're like, cut it. Throughout my travels, what I believed I was always searching for were the foreign destinations. But what I found most life-altering were the people. Global citizen people. I want to read this because I feel like I get chills, not only because it's like my ex and I was in love back in the day, but it's just this feeling that I think some of you will relate to. I was 19, abroad, anonymous, and drunk off bottom shelf wine when the Sia lyric, I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose, fire away, filled the dance floor. And probably for the first time ever in my life, I felt truly alive. I was attracted to my ex because he proved every gay stereotype wrong and wasn't looking for anyone else's approval or disapproval about it. You see how I'm smiling? This is the mindset. I'm not looking for your approval or your opinion, and vice versa. I'm who I am. The people who will vibe with me, we're gonna find each other. If there's drama in your friendship, you guys aren't made for each other, and that's SZA's grandma on that track. I don't have to like you, you don't have to like me. Just stay out of my way. And that's how you do that one. Great, love that. So that's how I see this. Sometimes it takes traveling the world and discovering other cultures that you vibe with more. When I go to Brazil, there are so many people there where I'm like, we could literally be best friends. They're just so playful and fun-loving and goofy and not taking life so seriously. They're vibrating on a high frequency over there. I'm like, I like you. And I love your food. And y'all are hot. And I like your language, your country's beautiful. And I wouldn't have known that there are millions of my potential viable best friends, future best friends that exist. They're just not in my country. They're somewhere else. Nobody's teaching us that. If you're feeling lonely, you haven't found your people, maybe it's because they're just not part of your culture. Maybe it's because you have something in you that you want to go explore. And you can find that in, I don't know, Japanese culture, Australian culture. Maybe your peoples are elsewhere. Oh my God, I just said the best thing and the camera wasn't on. Who is this book targeted at? People that travel out already, people who want to, what's the vibe? This is step one. You don't have to go to the next room to do this book, because this book is all about who you already are. I would say most people haven't traveled. And so they're still in this mindset of like, I don't even know really who I am besides my race, my gender, my sexuality, my experiences. But it's like, we're missing a part. The culture. you grew up in. It literally like shapes your mouth to tell you what foods you're gonna like and not like. Try to get someone to eat peanut butter. Not every country likes peanut butter. Ask me to eat peanut butter, I'm gonna eat the whole jar. It shapes our politics, how we think a society should work. It's just, there's so much here. And so there's like literally 17 chapters about that. First is do the book. Then part 2 is like go travel. Well, let's take a real example. Step 1, you do the book. And maybe there's a question like, what do you not like about your country? And your answer is, I find that they make the laws so difficult to understand that no one will ever understand them. And then in order to understand, you have to hire somebody. So really the only people who understand in society are those who have money. Therefore, in order to even know what's going on, you need to work your ass off to make a lot of money. Anyways, you'll like start drawing parallels here. Like in the States, money is everything. You write all that information in this book. Step 2, baby. You travel to the Netherlands. You're not even expecting to figure this out, but you're like, oh, let me look up the cannabis rules. So you find yourself on the government website. You see that the government website in the Netherlands has every law condensed to like 1 or 2 paragraphs so everybody can understand, so everyone knows what's happening, so there isn't this weird like police know everything, government officials know everything, but the people don't because it's so hard to understand. That's part 2. Part 3 is like, oh, well, why don't we change that in the States? I didn't know that other countries actually had simplified government websites. So that's what I'm saying. It's like this book is to help you flesh out what you're thinking and how you might be projecting those things on other countries when they're not exactly true. Part 2 is go to the country and be like, oh, damn, wait, I thought I was just looking up the weed rules. What I learned was that the government website is actually a lot more efficient than the American one in the process. You think you're just traveling to the Netherlands to go smoke some weed in a coffee shop. You're learning a lot about yourself. I really like this question. How did you get over the, so what, why write this kind of fear? I think a lot of people use words like fear and anxiety when in fact, like, to me, those are just like logical responses to many things that are happening in life. So how did you get over the so what, why write this? That is what everyone should be asking themselves. That's not a fear, that's just like a step in the process. There's some philosopher who said like no ideas are original, which is really interesting. To me, that shouldn't be a reason not to say them because I'm gonna have a way to explain a topic and you're gonna have a way to explain a topic and half the room is gonna understand you, half the room is gonna understand me. So it's not about like, I'm the one who said all this information. It's about, here's what we both think. How can we work together to get everyone on the same board? And look, we just did it. You got half the room, I got half the room. And that's great because now everyone understands. That's what I said in my French course too. Like all these concepts that I'm teaching you, you can find them for free online. Anything you ever learn at this point, you could find it online. In fact, an interesting question is like in 20 years, will we even need schools? Because you can just learn everything online now. And find the person whose voice you like to explain it to you. So with the French course, I'm like, all these topics you can literally learn for free. What you're paying for is like my curation. Because if you like the way that I speak, then you're gonna like the French course because that's how I speak. If you're gonna like the way that I see the world, you're gonna like the book. If you don't, then you're not gonna like the book. That's fine. Somebody else said it in a different way over there. You can go get their book over there. How much of it was outlined and how much just came out when writing? So the chapters, those were outlined. So I already had an idea like where I needed to go. Then I had different stories for each of the chapters and there were probably 3 stories in each chapter, but I had to cut it down to 1 story, whichever one I guess liked the most or made the most sense. Probably outlined like 40%, and then the 60% was like, oh wait, this reminds me of this other thing. So when I was even pitching this book, I'm like, look, if you need research from countries deep in Asia, I can't write that book. That's asking a lot. You need to get a bunch of authors on board for that. But here's what I could do. Here are my observations from around the world and the questions I would have liked somebody to ask me. This book is like, imagine I'm your tour guide who's sitting next to you on the train and I'm like, it's 11:59 p.m. What's keeping you up at night? Is it safety? That you don't live in like a safe neighborhood? Is it your appearance? Like when I hear these things, you guys, like safety. Some kid growing up in Rio de Janeiro where it's dangerous as fuck, and some kid growing up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, we're going to see the world differently. I don't even lock my door half the time because I'm like, oh, it's fine here. No one needs anything. Like, different story in Brazil. Appearance. Like, first thing comes to my mind is in South Korea, plastic surgery whenever you want it. Or you come to France, and I feel like a lot of people aren't really into the plastic surgery thing because they're more about looking all natural. They're not trying to look young. Why would you want to look young? Young people don't know anything yet. I'm fine showing my wrinkles. That shows that I've done shit. You know? So we're gonna look at beauty differently. This is the thing. It's like you might read this question and be like, what is the point? I wish I could have written a little bit more there, but I couldn't because there are word limits and like only so much can fit on a page. So the idea was that people would just like spill their hearts out, and then we'll do our book club, and that's when we can like come up and be like, here's what I meant by this. So the business side of the book deal and how do you publish a book, you can go a few different ways. The first way is self-publishing, which is so efficient, to be honest. You do exactly what you want. You hook it up on Amazon. Amazon prints it to the printer that's closest to that person's house. That's really efficient. Of course, you're like cutting millions of jobs in the process, but it is super efficient. You know, these are two different conversations actually. Self-publishing definitely has pros. It has its cons too, because it's just you. Pros and cons to working with a publisher. Pros, you have a team. Cons, you have a team. Working with a team means that they get a bigger cut, because essentially they're the ones covering the cost of printing the actual book, paying everybody who worked on the book with you, reprinting, keeping contact with bookstores, all the contracts, like they're handling all that. My publisher came to me years ago, like 5 years ago, on my former YouTube channel. At the time I had a book agent, and that was just messy. It was always messy with the agent, because the agent found us book deals, and then we didn't actually like the book deal, and then I got sour because they had worked like days to like get this book deal, and then we were like, but we don't want to write that book. So miscommunications, like there's a lot of that. This time I didn't have a book agent. So a different publisher reached out to me, YouTube channel, and said, hey, were you ever thinking about writing a book one day? Now, of course, that was like 3 or 4 years ago. Went to London, they came to Paris, drinks and back and forth, and what book would you even want to write? So you have to send a sample and a proposal. So your sample is a sample of the book. So I probably had to send in 30 pages of what I was thinking for the book. The proposal is more like, here are the proposed titles, here is the mood board, here are some keywords, here are other like players in the game, like other books that are similar. I was saying this is like if Eat, Pray, Love took its like novel portion. Those are my chapters. Then you took The Artist's Way, which is more of like a guided journal. That's this. After you send them your proposal and sample, this process will probably take months, but they're gonna then pitch it internally. After it passes one board meeting, it passes the next, and the next, and the next. Then they send a contract over saying, congratulations, you have a book deal. Here's something I didn't realize until I got into this. You have something called a book advance. And I think people are thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna make so much money off this book, I'm gonna get a book advance. That's an advance that will be paid back via the sales of your book. So it's really just like a loan. It's a loan for you to go write the book, to take time off to go write the book.
So even if your book sold booty copies, it could happen, you don't have to pay the advance back, but it's just if your book is doing really well, you're not gonna earn any additional money until your book advance is paid out. Until like they reach the amount that they already paid you, then they'll go like en plus de ça.
If you're an influencer or not watching this and you're like, maybe I want to write a book, let me give you my advice. This is my thought process with writing a book. You're not making much money off this book, but the opportunities that come from the book, speaking engagements, elevating your profile, like having a book in a bookstore, these are things that will bring you more opportunities, and it's those opportunities where you'll make money. So if you have this like A to B relationship always with everything you do, take an alphabet approach. Okay, it's gonna lead somewhere else, and that'll bring money and that'll bring opportunities, and it's not even about that, it's about, am I enjoying this moment, which is my life. My life is happening right now. Am I having a good time? Your thinking needs to go a little bit more outside the box than that. It all like links up. I call it my spider web. And you have your own spider web. It's like, what are the traditional like by the book things that you're doing? How is that linking back to the things you actually want to be doing? How is that linking back to the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? This is your spider web. You're doing all that. These are my people. What's the first word on page 97? Can you separate love and sex? And prime example again, it's like, how does this relate? What relates is when we're all combining our answers. Everyone around the world is like, yeah, I'm from Norway and here's what I think about sex. And then you have someone from Kuwait who's like, here's what I think about sex. That's what's interesting, because it's our initial environments that shape who we are and how we see the world, but we don't have to let that define us. So can you separate love and sex? Yes. In fact, I think they're completely different things. I think you have your companion who you love, like you want them in your life, you love them. And then there's sex, which is like a different thing. Like maybe you have sex with your partner, but then you just also have sex with whoever, like, and it has nothing to do with your love for this person. You can want to have sex with somebody, but not want to be with them. Again, that's just the way I think of it. Y'all asked. Like, literally, y'all asked. Sentence that really hits home for you. So, the end of each chapter, and there are 17 chapters, I called these zingers. Like, what is that line that, like, zings, that I want people to be like, no, this bitch just didn't do that. Like, that's what I was going for. A changed 16-year-old. I went home to Indiana feeling confident with the new realization that no matter where I go around the world from there, su casa can always be mi casa. Hold on, wait, one more. Then you have to get the book because I can't be giving away all my zingers right now. This is the race chapter. What's most important in stopping the cycle of perpetuating the same tired stereotypes and assumptions is to make efforts to question our own ignorance, whether you're black or white. So the conversation around race is not so black and white. No, I was not happy if there was not a zinger. Y'all saw my Instagram story. If it's not sounding like Nicki Minaj, it's not going up. All right, and look, I'm gonna see some of y'all at the book tour. I'm giving a presentation in some of the cities, and then there's a book signing and a Q&A there as well. So, but if you aren't coming to that, please leave a comment below and I'll pop in and out as I'm on the book tour. I'm gonna be filming it too, the meetings that I'm at. Like I told y'all, I'm trying to be a little bit more active on here now that that's out of the way. Thank you for watching. If you could put it on a shelf or rate it, review it, tell a bookstore, that would really help. If not, that's fine. Thank you. I'll see y'all in the next video. Later. What was I saying? Sorry, it died. It died. Like, couldn't it have died when I was talking about the contempt of court?